Hey everyone, my name is Jeff, and I was one of Clint's gaming buddies. I put this video together to show you the character that's been added as a memorial for him in an online game called Monsters and Memories. I'm going to break this video down into two parts. First, I prepared a little 5-minute preamble to offer a little context and background that should help you better appreciate the character. Um, this portion of the video, it's mostly for anybody who isn't terribly familiar with online games, or more specifically, the types of games that Clint used to play. I'll do my best to use really general terms, so even people with zero familiarity should be able to follow along. But with that said, if you're someone who's already a little bit versed in gaming, or you just want to skip right to the footage of the character, you can go ahead and skip to the timestamp on the screen I'm going to throw up now. So let's start at the beginning. To fully appreciate what made a game like Monsters Memory special to Clint, we actually need to talk about a much older game called EverQuest. I met Clint playing EverQuest actually back in 2004. So what is EverQuest or EQ? EverQuest is an MMORPG, and that stands for a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. I know it's a mouthful. Basically, MMORPGs are enormous fantasy worlds. They're occupied by thousands of characters controlled by both humans and the computer. These games are meant to be played over months, years, or in some cases, decades. They're really open ended. Players just log in and kind of pursue whatever that might interest them. Most players do what you'd expect they'd do. They fight monsters, explore dangerous parts of the world, get treasure. But other players might take more humble approaches, like becoming craftsmen or focusing on being a trader of sorts. MMORPGs, they're meant to be a very, very long journey. Player characters, they start out really weak. They fight simple things like rats and wolves, but over time you'll meet other players, you'll team up, you'll travel to like really exotic, crazy places and fight all sorts of weird monsters. Um, Dragons, giants, gods, basically every fantasy trope you can think of. There's some epic showdown in a game like EverQuest. Um, but now to focus specifically on EverQuest, this game was famously difficult in how they designed it. But they didn't do this just to be mean or to like make the game hard just for the sake of making it hard. They did it to actually encourage players to socialize. See, very little in the game in EverQuest could be done alone. Monsters were really, really strong. And to battle monsters appropriate for your character's level, so you'd get rewards, you'd have to team up in groups of 6. And to defeat the biggest and scariest enemies in the game, you needed to join guilds and team up with up to 72 people to go on these massive raids. You never forget your first 72-man dragon fight. Um, the world itself was also made with this mindset. It was really, really big. Like there's continents, oceans, and traveling on foot took an impractically long time. But certain characters could teleport you around the world. So most days you'd log into a game like EQ and you'd find yourself approaching strangers and asking if they can help you out. So basically, in a game like EverQuest, socialization was key. You had to meet other players, make friends, and team up. If this all started to sound like a big hassle for a game, it's because it was. A few years after EverQuest release, the genre started to change. New MMOs in the early 2000s and mid 2000s, they were designed so players could play by themselves a lot more, all the way to the max level. And even the toughest monsters in future games, they could be beat by much smaller groups. Traveling the world was also faster and easier. You didn't have to ask other players for help. Uh, Basically, just players are far more able to keep to themselves with a small circle of friends. And credit where credit's due, uh, those design choices paid off. The biggest and most successful MMOs ever were designed in that mold, and the genre really blew up in popularity. And from there, they never really looked back. So a game like EverQuest, it kind of stood alone in its design for the next 25 years. Um, and most players are happy to go along for the ride, but not Clint. For players like Clint, EverQuest was home. He loved the challenge it presented. He loved the years-long epic journey where everything was earned and nothing was free. He loved how the game rewarded persistence. He loved how unforgiving it could be. And that finally brings us to Monsters and Memories. Monsters and Memories is the passion project of one of EverQuest's original designers, a guy named Sean Lord. His goal with Monsters and Memories is to make a sort of spiritual successor to EverQuest. The game will follow similar design philosophies. It'll have a similar art style too. It's a small project. At the time of this recording, he's only being developed by a team of about 20 people. So as you might guess, Clint was enamored by the project. He followed it really closely since its inception, and even became something of a fixture in the Monsters and Memories community. I took a quick look in their Discord server, which is like a voice chat and like a chat forum, and Clinton posted over 700 messages since joining about a year ago. Um, I wish I could express to you just how excited he was for this game. Keep in mind, today EverQuest is almost 25 years old, and since then, Clint's dabbled in his fair share of other MMOs over the last 2.5 decades, but he always went back to EverQuest. He just loved that hardcore design. And after all this time, a game like Monsters and Memories looked like it might finally be a new home for him. But one of the upsides of being such a small project is that Sean and his team are actually fairly accessible. So after we had heard Clinton's past, I reached out to Sean to explain what had happened and asked if there was a possibility that they could make a memorial for him. Sean immediately recognized his name, actually, from how active he was in their Discord server, and he was happy to put something together. So now I'm going to throw it over to some footage I recorded last weekend. If you couldn't tell, this was a little bit scripted. I had some talking points here. And then the footage I'm going to cut to is just me kind of just rambling as I show you Clint's character and just explain the stories that relate to him. Hey everyone. So this is me recording live now. I'm going to show you guys Clint's NPC in Monsters and Memories, the character they put in the game for him. I'm switched over from the pre-recorded to do this live just so I could kind of ramble and go over a few of the stories and explain the things that I'll be showing you with the character. So I'm standing here at the northern gate of a city called Night Harbor. It's the city where they're starting all of the characters during the playtest. So more or less every character that plays during the test will be at this city. And so right from this door over here, you'll notice two characters down in that little corner along this desert area here. So let's go say hello. So while we're running, just a little relevant piece of info. I referred to Clint as an NPC. That stands for a non-player character. And what that is it's a character in the game that's not controlled by a human. He's controlled by the computer. And here we are. You'll notice this little goblin fella. That's Clint the Innocent. There he is. That's Clint's character that they put in the game for him. And that character behind him, that big fella, the ogre lackey, that's his bodyguard. And Clint will actually explain that for us. So Clint's character is a merchant. That means that players can walk up to him, and if they right-click on him, they get this window here where they can buy and sell things. And I'll explain the significance of that in a little bit, but for that reason alone, that kind of means that Clint's going to be a pretty important character, because people will, they go out and adventure, and they defeat monsters and get treasure, and then they go to sell their treasure for money. But we'll go over that a little later. So, when I reached out to Sean, I gave him some information about Clint. So he's not just a silent character. He actually has a few lines that he'll read to you if you interact with him. And you start that by walking up to him. You click on him. So you have him targeted up there. And I press H. That's how you hail them. That's how you start dialogue. And you'll notice in this window down here, there's the text. And I will read that out loud now. I'll make sure to blow it up nice and big so people can read it. But when you press H on Clint the Innocent says, "Yo, hail and well met, traveler. Welcome to Clint's Corner. Or at least it would be once my big friend and I have had a chance to settle into the city. How may I help you?" So his greeting there is actually pretty bog standard. It's his character's a merchant. He just introduces himself and tells you that he's planning on moving into the city. The only real reference to Clint here, well, the unique one, is the inclusion of the word "yo," which, as you might imagine, isn't part of the vernacular of characters in this world. That was very specifically suggested by myself and our friends to Sean to put for Clint, and I'm sure anybody who's known Clint has probably heard him say it at least a few times. And for us, it was very innocuous. He would just join our voice chat, and without fail, his greetings always just a very 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 mundane, very normal. Yo, and we started playing it up. At that Pennsylvania accent of his. So he'd be like, "Yo," and then myself or our friend Will or Josh would be like, "Yow," and it just kind of, and Clint was tickled by that, and just kind of went from there. So that very quickly became his catchphrase in our little posse here. And then the latter part of the message where he talks about their plans to move, can kind of, I guess, go over that. So Clint, as his character, as you saw, he's just kind of standing out here outside the city, up against the wall in a corner. Um, very, very unremarkable location. And as I've gone over rather extensively already, this is a playtest. This game is in very early development. Realistically, it's not going to be done, like shipped for retail for at least 3 years of the dates of this recording, summer 2024. So maybe 2026, 2027, 2028. And it's the city's pretty rough. It's just a lot of just very bare bones, flat buildings. Like they're still building the game, they're building the world, and they added Clint not even a couple months ago when I reached out to Sean. So his dialogue reflecting his current state is actually kind of in keeping with how MMOs will operate. MMOs, they're like an ongoing story. It's not like, you buy a Mario game and you just play through it and it's done. MMOs, they're constantly being worked on. Usually the bigger ones, they'll be like, we call it an expansion every year or so, and then like the world will change. There might be like a big monster invasion or a calamity or something, and they'll add new levels. Old levels will get changed. So Clint explaining that he's trying to move into the city is accurate, and in all likelihood, in a future update or a future play test, maybe the alpha test, as we get closer to launch, when the developers actually build Clint a little storefront in the town, him and his character will move in keeping with the fiction of what he just explained to us. So Clint actually has two other voice lines, or I guess it's dialogue lines you can access by interacting with him. So in interacting with Clint and with any NPC in this game, it's a very old school system. In modern games, when you talk to a character, you get like a menu. You click on a character and like a little list of things you can say pops up. In Monsters and Memories and EverQuest, you actually have to type what you want to say to the NPCs. In practice, this is just an exercise in saying the right keywords. And when we found Clint, we pretty quickly started, throwing keywords at him to find dialogue, and we were able to find 2 extra lines that they gave him. So the first line is him explaining why is he Clint the Innocent. So here I have Clint targeted, and I'm just going to say, why do they call you Clint the Innocent? And you can see down there, Clint's got a reply. And I'll put it up nice and big on the screen for you. And in response to that, Clint says, a goblin with the title The Innocent may seem odd to you, since a lot of folks tend to think we're anything but honest. However, I've made a lot of good friends while adventuring over the years, and I never snagged any of their stuff. They gave me a title, and it stuck. It's absolutely not a ploy to distract you from how much I'm not going to pay you for all the random crap you're going to be trying to sell me. So, let me see here. So I already mentioned that Clint is a merchant, and that's kind of just poking fun at what his character's role will actually be in this game. You'll notice that Clint's right outside the city. Like I mentioned, this is a starting city. Those monsters behind me, like that little rat over there, there's a beetle up on the hill, skeleton. These are all level 1 monsters. These are the bottom of the barrel, the first things you're going to fight when you play this game. And like I mentioned, you'll fight your monsters, they'll drop their treasure, you'll go to sell them and get money so you can buy equipment for yourself or whatever. Monsters and Memories is kind of a fun system. Well, I say fun, a lot of people will hate it, where you can't just go to one merchant and offload all your stuff. That's not realistic. So what Monsters and Memories does is, let's say you fight a monster who drops a sword. If you take that sword into the town, you can only really sell it to somebody who deals in swords. So you go to a blacksmith, you go to a weapons dealer. If you go to a baker with a sword, he's not going to even want to buy it. So something they do Monsters and Memories for convenience sake is they have NPCs like Clint. Clint is a savvy merchant. He's not afraid to cut a rough deal. And Clint's character, among with a few others, their specialty, what they're known for, is that they'll actually buy almost anything, but they'll do it for very, very low prices. Basically, if you want to be lazy, Clint's happy to take advantage of that, and he'll just pay you bottom of the barrel prices, so you can just offload all of your stuff in one place. And then presumably, behind the scenes, Clint's turning around and selling them himself for better prices. So that little line there about how much he's not going to pay you for all the random crap you're going to sell him, again, that rings true to the fiction of the game. His character is opportunistic and he's happy to buy anything you have, but he'll absolutely lowball you on it. But what's the real story? Why did Clint have this weird this nickname, Clint the Innocent? It's pretty straightforward, really. For about the last 15 years, 10 years, Clint changed his online handle, his screen name, on most of the platforms we're on, like Steam and Discord, to Innocent NPC. I probably already explained what an NPC is a little earlier in the video, so Clint doing that is just kind of a joke. The idea is you're running around in a game like this, and you would see a character with above his head it says Innocent NPC. You know it's a player just by the fact that they're moving, it's Clint moving around. But either way, it's like him pretending to masquerade as an NPC and being innocent. So, you know, you might see like a small child or like just a guy selling milk. That's an innocent NPC. And then you see Clint run by, innocent NPC with a big sword. Just kind of a big silly joke. But that's really the beginning and end of why he had that name and what the joke was. So we'll now get on to the third and last piece of dialogue that Clint has, and that's ask him about Clint's Corner. So to initiate this dialogue option, you just have to mention Clint's Corner. So I'll say, tell me about Clint's Corner. And once again, he's got a response. I'll put it up nice and big for you. Clint the Innocent says, Clint's Corner is the name of the shop we'll be opening in town once we've had some success out here. I'm Clint, if you haven't figured that out already, and this is my friend Fowler. We're pleased to meet you. Again, it's in the fiction of the game, a very straightforward answer. That's the name he intends to have for his shop, and you'll notice that in the interim, while he's waiting for his shop to get built, he's standing in a corner. Pretty straightforward. Nice alliteration, pretty good memorable shop name. That's really all there is to it. And as far as the bodyguard goes, Clint, it's implied that he hired him. And that kind of rings true to the real story. So what is Clint's Corner? Where did that name come from? That was a semi-recent development, actually. About 2 years ago, Clint, myself, and a few of our friends, we were playing on an EverQuest progression server. Very long story short, they start up fresh servers on their game. They give me EverQuest every few years, and you just start from the very beginning like it was a fresh launch. So while you're playing on EverQuest, or rather these progression servers specifically, the areas of the world that players want to go hunt in is usually the same one at any given period in time. So in the summertime, it's the first expansion. Everybody's in the few zones of that expansion, hunting areas, sorry. And the way players hunt in EverQuest, if I haven't gone over this earlier in the video, is typically they call it a camp, where you and your friends will stake out like a little bit of territory. Like, I'll actually give you a little example here. Like, we might pretend that I'm in EverQuest now. A camp might be this big rock that I'm climbing on. And the whole group will just sit on this rock, and for several minutes or hours, people will go and engage monsters, bring them over here, and we'll fight them on this rock. And then we'll call this our camp. This is our camp. Rock 1, we might call it. So, and there's only so many monsters to go around as well. So, you know, when an area gets too crowded, players start fighting over monsters to hunt because they just clean everything out of the area. So during that summer while we were playing, we were in a zone. I think it was Guck, if for those of you familiar with EverQuest, Lower Guck. It's a big dungeon full of frog people. And it's a very big dungeon, but again, the area was more or less completely full of players. All of the major popular camps were taken. And typically when you go into an area like that and you want to set up a new camp with your friends and get some experience and fight monsters, you'll load into the area, and then you'll, in the out of character channel or the shout channel, you'll call for a camp check. And what that means is you're just asking everybody already in the area to just say where they are. Hey, what camps are taken? Who's where? What's available? And really quickly we had a couple bad nights where just everything was taken. We had nowhere to hunt. So we got in inventive. We we ran to a seemingly random hallway and found a corner, more or less directly between two camps, ones that were already taken. And we declared it Clint's Corner. This is our camp. This is Clint's Corner. And we would stay there and we would fight monsters, and we upset the groups near us because we started fighting monsters that they wanted to fight, and it was a whole thing. But where Clint's Corner kind of cements itself as a name that would live on was we'd be in the zone and other people would come into the zone and they'd want to know what camps were taken. They'd ask for a camp check, and sure enough, people were like, "Oh, we're in the throne room. We're in the library." And then we would just gleefully type into the chat, "We are in Clint's Corner." And as you can imagine, that just confused people. Lots of question marks, lots of "what the hell is Clint's Corners? What is Clint's Corner?" And we would just laugh. It was just us being silly and stupid. And that's basically the story behind Clint's Corner. So when I messaged Sean and we were thinking, oh yeah, Clint will be a merchant, that was just a no-brainer. That's going to be the name of his shop. So the last point about this dialogue line that we need to touch on is the ogre lackey there that Clint the Innocent introduced as Fowler. That's actually a reference to the very first character Clint was playing when I first met him back in 2004. At the time, Clint and his friends from high school were running a guild in EverQuest. A guild is like a semi-permanent team where you all kind of have a shared chat channel and you'll form groups and go on raids together. And one of the benefits of running a guild is because you have the same roster most days, you can kind of address what you need for each encounter. So one thing that their guild was in need of was a character class called the Shaman. So what Clint actually did is he met somebody in the game and bought his account from him for 5,000 platinum pieces. That's the in-game currency. So the guy gave Clint the account, gave him the password, and on it was a shaman named Fowler. And that was the character that Clint was playing when we first met. And because of the cost, he actually got himself a nickname, 5K Fowler, for 5,000 platinum pieces. So again, just art imitates history, where Clint purchased Fowler in real life back in 2004, and now in Monsters and Memories, Clint hired Fowler to look after him. So the last thing I want to show you about Clint, as I mentioned, he is a merchant. For the most part, he just sells in just garden variety, just crap, just stuff people get off of monsters, and very basic supplies like food rations, torches, just the most basic items that characters will need in this game. But you'll notice one unique item here, Clint's Special Formula. Clint's Special Formula is a drink. Here, I'll actually buy one for myself right now. And here's the description of Clint's Special Formula. It's just a simple bottle, and it says your friends will love it. Nice and simple, nothing really fancy. It's got the same graphic as this summoned bottle of water that I made for myself. So Clint's Special Formula, it's really simple. It's just a drink. It sates your character's thirst. In Monsters and Memories, your characters need to eat and drink so often. The reason for that, it's not that you starve to death. It's that that's how you regenerate your health and your magic power. Drink governs magic, food governs health. So as long as your character has water to drink, he'll regenerate his mana, this big old blue bar up here. So what is Clint's Special Formula? What is that a reference to? The very reason why we suggested Clint be a merchant to begin with was his favorite character from EverQuest, called Ping Fuzzlecutter. Ping Fuzzlecutter was a gnome. And he was outside the city of Freeport, which is actually pretty similar to the city I'm at now. It's like one of the main starting areas from the very beginning of the game, right in 1999. And much like Clint, it's a starting area where lots of low-level characters will be out fighting. Ping Fuzzlecutter had something of a reputation in EverQuest. Besides just being a garden variety merchant that people would just sell their random crap to, he had a small selection of very colorful items. I'm looking at a list right now. He had aerated mineral water, catacomb curls, lupine locks, wild one wig, and his claim to fame, the most famous item of his, Fuzzlecutter Formula 5000. What was Fuzzlecutter Formula 5000? It was just a drink. The only thing that made it special was that it would sate your thirst ever so slightly better than just your garden variety flask of water that you can get from any innkeeper. So for that reason, the character garnered a ever so small amount of fame from people who wanted to stack up their inventory with very affordable drink that was just a little bit better than the water they'd get everywhere else. They'd find Ping Fuzzlecutter. I mentioned that this character was Clint's favorite NPC from EverQuest. I'm making a bit of an inference there, and that's because much like how Clint's his screen name was Innocent NPC for a good 15 years, his avatar, his picture, was Ping Fuzzlecutter for a good 15 years. And I remember when we all started up on that EverQuest progression server together, that was the first thing he did, or one of them, is he found his way over to Freeport, he found Ping Fuzzlecutter, and he got us all several stacks of this superb drink. And it was nice because then we didn't have to spend as much money on drinks ourselves. But yeah, I guess if, like I said, if there's a happy, bittersweet end to all this, it's that's Clint's memorial. He ended up taking up the mantle. His favorite character, one that he'd joke about and was in his, I can remember as far back as like 2010. That was his picture on Steam. And now, while EverQuest is certainly still going strong and Ping Fuzzlecutter is still out there, Monsters and Memories is very much a continuation of EverQuest. It's like a reinvention of the game. And Clint's taken up that mantle, and on he'll go. But I really wouldn't. I don't want to end this video with a sappy note like that. So I have one fun story to tell as well about Clint and Monsters and Memories, and it breaks my heart that I don't have actual recorded footage of this, but I do have some screenshots that I'll show you right now. Our friend Kyle, if you know Clint, you probably knew Kyle. He stopped by on this playtest last night, or 2 nights ago. He just wanted to see Clint's character really quickly while the playtest was active. I think he had to catch a flight in the morning. He wasn't on the play very long. And he ran up to find Clint. And this was shortly after we found out that he had all this dialogue, so he was really excited to go and interact with Clint. So Kyle ran up to Clint, and we told him, oh, just press H. Target Clint and press H. And I don't know what Kyle was doing, but he didn't press H. He pressed the attack button. And NPCs, characters, and Monsters and Memories, they're not protected. If you want to attack them, you can. But they are protected in that they are very, very high level. I'll target Clint here. I'll press C. This little red message down here means that he is much higher level than me, and if I were to attack him, he would dirt at me. And that is precisely what happened to our friend Kyle. Kyle walked up to Clint, and instead of saying hello, he punched him. And Clint killed Kyle. He hit Kyle once for a great deal of damage. Kyle died. And we all laughed, and we laughed and laughed. And Kyle said he wouldn't have had it any other way. He'll give it to Clint. One more. And I've got some screenshots of the aftermath. I'll be putting those up now. But yeah, I think that's the fun note to end this on. Is that once more Clint got the last laugh and just dirt napped his old friend Kyle. But yeah, that about sums it all up. Thanks for watching, and like everyone else, I miss him dearly. And if they do eventually move Clint into the city, I'll be sure to make an update for you guys and show that off. Might be a year, might be 2, but as soon as they do that, you'll hear from me. Thanks.